right, and welcome back. We'd like to now cross over to the Kenyatta International Conference Center, where we have Michelle Ngele, and what's happening there is the SME Fest. Michelle, thank you for joining us once again. Just update us on what's going on, and we hand over to you, Michelle.
Well, Michael, preparations are still ongoing for the SME 2017 festival, the biggest networking and growth festival in Africa. This is where we will have a convergence of more than 1,000 business people and SME holders across the continent, and they will be coming here today to share ideas in terms of opportunities to network as well. And as we speak, we will be speaking later on to KICC CEO Tabitha Karanja, and she will be talking to us about the challenges that she faced while growing KICC, a Kenyan beer brewing company that now commands 20% of the local market. But that is later on. For now, let's speak to Muthoni Ngatia, who is the organizer for this SME Fest 2017. She'll be giving us insight into what we're expecting for today and tomorrow, this being a two-day event. Muthoni, thank you so much for joining us on Morning Express. SME 2017, an event of its kind. The theme for this year is sharing great ideas for even greater business. What are we expecting today?
We're going to be having a series of panels, speaking opportunities, networking opportunities to enable business people to learn new ideas from each other that they could probably, begin to think about, especially, in this year that started out a little hard. So that, through the year they could actually, get across to more business connections that could help them increase their revenues. So the event today is actually a conference with various speakers as well, sharing their, insights on industry, sharing their experiences, sharing anything that could actually enable people make good decisions to grow their businesses.
Now, one of the things that will be taking place is business matchmaking. SMEs will be match-made with bigger multinationals, bigger cooperatives in the same line of work. How important is this, especially in learning from the mistakes that the big corporations have made?
This is really a great learning opportunity. What you find is that everybody who starts a small business wants to grow it into a large business. Actually dreams of having it as a very large business one day, whether it's in terms of people, but mainly revenues. What we find is that there are already big organizations which were also created by other entrepreneurs, and they have people that have worked in these businesses. The business owners are also part of the event, and in the process of interacting with them, you get to know, okay, so if we're in the same industry, what are some of these things this person has done well? If I am not in this business and I wanted to think about going into business in that area, what are they actually doing? What's happening in that sector? If I have, competition, I need to be able to know what is my competition doing better than me. So business matchmaking allows people to be able to identify other business people who can be great connections to help them grow their opportunities as they carry on with their business. And we have different kinds of organizations, people with solutions for their business, people with leads in terms of sales opportunities for their business. We have so many partners in the event that actually would really help a lot of SMEs find opportunities within the year.
Now, despite SMEs employing more than 70% of the Kenyan workforce, there's still a lot of issues that are being faced with SMEs. The biggest, of course, is access to financing and access to capital. But what other challenges faced by SMEs will be addressed here today?
One of the things that have turned out to be a really big pain for SMEs today is actually delayed payments. This is a big deal, actually, and it's actually stalling a lot of businesses. You'll find that, for example, good things were done by the government around what we call this preferential procurement or AGPO. And what you find is that there are a lot of complaints today from SMEs who haven't received payments for several months, some of them even years. And these delayed payments have actually led to a lot of very difficult circumstances in some of these businesses. So I would actually say that one of the biggest challenges of SMEs today is actually delayed payments, because even if you go to the bank and they would probably do like discounting for your invoice or LPO, if there's no guarantee at the end of the line that you're actually going to be able to get your payment through, then even the banks are not able to absorb this kind of risks. And this is a huge impediment to the growth of SMEs. Another thing that comes out strongly in terms of the challenge of SMEs, I think, is really HR. There are so many HR issues that entrepreneurs face, and today I think one of the leading ones is actually productivity. And this is really a big pain, because to grow your business, you can't do this alone. You need people to work with you. And there are a lot of challenges in terms of measuring productivity, in terms of motivating productivity, and sometimes just the work culture that is existing today, especially with the millennials who have different ways of looking at the world. So this is also another really big pain for the SMEs. But as we speak right now, our experiences and the feedback that we are getting from the small businesses is that the economy is really constrained right now. There's a huge cash flow problems in so many of the SMEs, because if they have delayed payments, they just don't know when the payment's going to come through. Right. Because large organizations, whether it's private sector or public sector, are delaying payments. And when these are delayed, it just means the spending is constrained, reduces purchasing power across the board. We were just checking the other day in supermarkets, and we noticed that the queues are really shorter, much shorter these days. We also noticed that the number of items in the shopping cart are actually significantly reducing. This points to challenges, and when you see that happening, it just tells you that the smaller businesses, if a large supermarket has this kind of decline in the number of customers or the amount of sales that are happening, then the small business is actually suffering more.
Right.
So these are some of the challenges.
Let's focus a bit more on value addition, because this is one of the solutions that SMEs can employ, especially with the cash flow. Kenya is mainly an import economy, and analysts now say a rise in imports amid the drop in exports is what is really to blame for the weakening of the Kenyan shilling against the dollar. But how then can Kenyan SMEs manage to venture more into the export world, manage to do business with multinationals as small as they are?
That's a really good question. I actually feel very strongly about the trade deficit and the role that SMEs can play in really just fixing this trade deficit. What you find is that a lot of SMEs, especially in the agricultural sector, which is where majority of people, majority of the people in the economy are based, are actually selling produce. This is a big challenge, because it means that the life of the produce is much shorter than if it was a processed product, or if there was a bit of value addition on it. And because of that, we find that we are not able to take our products very far. In fact, sometimes just the closest town where you are, and the farthest you can get is the major towns like Nairobi and Mombasa. And sometimes a lot of wastage even when this produce gets into these places. But there's already a lot of technology in terms of preserving produce, and these are some of the things that we need to think about. On top of my mind, what incentives can we give? For example, if we remove duty on packaging and processing equipment, what would this mean for SMEs? Like all these cooperative societies that are involved in bringing together all this produce from the farmers. How can we allow them to start to begin to think differently about how they sell the produce that comes from the farmers? The outgrowers who are contracted perhaps by large horticultural farms, they're also getting not really the best price for their wares. And my thinking would be, what would it mean if there's affordable equipment to be able to help set up small industries that help them do value addition, so that they can get a better return on their input, on their output. So these are some of the things that if we addressed a lot well, then we would actually be able to see SMEs growing. So people need to start seeing their incomes increase, and therefore they can be able to invest better, or they can actually even be better potential customers even for lending institutions. And these are some of the things that we really need to discuss, and that's what SME Fest is about. It's actually just to create a platform whereby we have these discussions, but we don't just have discussions, we have action, just urge action, because I think a lot of these things are known, but we just haven't had this conversation around these people who've already invested their resources. They've gotten into business, they have money, they have employees, they have, how do we scale them? Why are they stagnating? Why are we not seeing enough graduation of these SMEs?
Right.
So these are some of the challenges that we need to really address, and SME Fest is about allowing a very multi-stakeholder kind of conversation, public sector, private sector, and SMEs themselves. Like, how do we get out of this?
Right. And speaking of SMEs themselves, because all these challenges noted, very pertinent issues being faced by SMEs, but many times as business people, there are challenges you can make at the foundation of your business, and they're really very hard to recover from later on. So, saving SMEs from themselves, what kinds of business models and structures, because these are trends that keep on changing, what kind of business structures and business models are being used in the 21st century that can guarantee rise of many new micro enterprises and a lot of job creation?
I like that question. One thing I like about SMEs is that if you have SMEs as your customers, you actually have business customers. And this is a really better way of growing a business. One of the things that I would actually say that would make a big difference is if people thought about business models that, number one, if you acquire the customer today, you actually can earn from that customer for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people are into the business of merchandising, where once you make the sale, there's not likely to be a longer term relationship unless there's a repeat buy from that customer. And this is a big challenge with the SMEs because some people have not thought out their business models very clearly. And I think this part of this is because there's really little financial literacy kind of programs that run around that are easy to access. When we try to reach out to SMEs on SME Fest and the knowledge that you can acquire through interactions, or the knowledge that you acquire through peers or interacting with us, we found that a lot of them haven't even been prioritizing getting opportunities to acquire new knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it's really this Juakali mentality that sometimes people talk about, but I think it's because in SME there's a lot of survival for the fittest. Right. It's really tough out there because we don't find any programs that come in to empower SMEs. It tend to be like they're really entry level, and sometimes the people who need support are not the ones at the entry level. Mm-hmm. They are the ones who already invested enough, and just a bit of injection into whatever they're trying to do in terms of positive energy, resources would actually mean scale. And that's the kind of SME that we focus on. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. And of course, technology is also something that is going to be discussed here today. The technology and the service sector can contribute very greatly to the country's GDP. But how can SMEs really incorporate this into their business structures to ensure that they are well able to compete in this globalized industry today?
That's a really good question. I think, as we know, that technology has permeated each and every sector, and is actually disrupting now. It's not just part of the sectors; it's actually disrupting the sectors. So what you find is that a lot of SMEs are lagging a little behind in terms of paying attention to technology. But what I find interesting is that entrepreneurs actually own smartphones, and they use technology in terms of communication. They use WhatsApp, they use Telegram, they use technology, but they haven't just been taking into consideration technology for their business. And today you'll find in SME Fest several organizations that are actually exhibiting technology for SMEs. And that's because we really believe that there are really good solutions out there that can actually make a difference. And what technology actually does is that it allows you to discover what's going on in your business. You get insight. Because the problem is that a lot of people are manual. I mean, if you're writing your sales in a book today, you're going to lose out in a lot of opportunities to analyze what's going on in your business. You probably will not know what's going on all the time. And because of that, you're actually likely to make wrong decisions because you go with your gut or what you think is what you feel attracted to. But that can be very expensive on the long term. Like I said, saving SMEs from SMEs is all about making sure that people are making fact-based decisions. And the only way to have fact is to look at data. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can get data is to use technology systems that help you actually get access to that information already analyzed in a proper way for you to benefit. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, of course, networking is the main aim for being here today. And they say your network is your net worth. We'll have leading entrepreneurs, we'll have investors here today. How important is it for SMEs to come out here today? And especially when you're talking about networking, it's a very important tool, but how do SMEs go about this? It's not just about getting somebody's card and putting it in your pocket.
Yeah, that's like a really big thing, because we actually have a panel dedicated to business networking, so that people get to know about the business networks that exist in our local market, which you can plug into and actually begin to have regular networking opportunities. Because as you know, people do business with people they trust, and trust comes with building a relationship, and that's what business networking is about. You meet somebody, you have a discussion about many things, you discuss about business, you discuss about other issues, but in the process you're still bonding. And once you bonded, you find that this person is likely to refer you to somebody else, or they're likely to give you business, or they're likely to remember you next time. So, and this is a really low-cost way of actually marketing, and maybe even very well precise, because it happens that if somebody you trust recommends somebody else to come and help you out on something, you'll probably pay attention to that, because you want that peer review element in your decisions. Mm-hmm. And this is what business networking provides for. A lot of people do it, they're not conscious that they're doing it, but they're actually like really well-structured organizations that help that happen, even locally. And the goal is, let people know, where should I go to be able to meet with other business people, because in the process I can get to know a lot about the opportunities that can come my way.
Mm-hmm. Now, finally, this is not the first SME festival that is taking place. There was SME 2016 last year. What came out of that?
Oh, that was the inaugural event, and we just wanted to find out, would this be something that is worth doing again? And from the feedback we got, it became very interesting, because the way SME Fest is structured is a combination of networking, discussion points, and experts or other business owners sharing their insights around various topics. And then there's the business workshops on various things that actually, trouble SMEs, or things that can actually help you awaken to certain opportunities. So what we found is that it's really important that we create a platform to talk or to create a conversation around SME development. Mm-hmm. So that people don't get isolated, because a lot of focus has been on the micro. You hear people talking about, the mama mboga kind of debate. While that is good, there's a lot of people who have put in a lot of resources right on their own, are struggling every day, have probably passed the test of a bit, survival for the fittest, and they need to find a space where, the public sector is paying attention in terms of policy making on how do we actually make sure that these organizations are not stagnating. Secondly, how do we make sure that private sector is actually creating products that are responsive to this? I keep saying that, if I go, for example, for advertising, you'll find that the price tag that I will get is the same one a large organization will get. Mm-hmm. But we are not in the same size, so that means that I am isolated. I can't create any awareness on what I do. And this is not just about, advertising. There's insurance, there's even banking, a lot of products which are being scaled down to seem to fit into the SME sector, but are actually not very responsive to the real world of how SMEs survive.
All right. Muthoni Ngatia is the event organizer for the SME 2017 festival, the biggest SME growth and networking festival in Africa, exclusively right here on KTN News. We'll take a short break here now on Morning Express, but when we come back, we continue speaking to leading innovators and successful entrepreneurs in the country. Don't go too far.